Hello Internet, my name is Oh, you can't see me. Hold on, let me get bigger. Hello Internet, my name is Eder, and welcome to another episode of Film Editorials. It's the middle of summer, and that can only mean that another Marvel movie is on the way. The topic of today's video, Ant-Man. Ant-Man tells the story of Scott Lang, played by Paul Rudd, who is an ex-con man and burglar who is trying to reform himself for the sake of his daughter. Because the process of reformation isn't going terribly well, Scott decides to get back into the burglary game, but his next target, Dr. Hank Pym, played by Michael Douglas, just happens to need to meet a burglar. Pym and Lang team up with the help of a suit that changes the wearer's size, and Lang becomes the Ant-Man in order to save the world. I probably don't even need to say this, or it would not be difficult to convince anyone of this, but because this is a Marvel superhero movie, it's generally very enjoyable. As we've kind of all come to expect, this movie does really well with the things that Marvel does really well. The action is really good, the effects are pretty good, and that's especially challenging considering how much time Scott has to spend the size of an ant and hanging out with a bunch of ants, so there's a lot of digital effects involved, and they do a really good job, and they look pretty good. The dialogue is, of course, top-notch. It's very funny. Paul Rudd is a funny guy. Michael Douglas gets a few good cracks in too. You're almost certainly going to laugh in this movie because it's really funny. It's one of the more light-hearted and less serious Marvel movies, especially coming off of the tail of like Captain America Winter Soldier and Avengers 2, which were kind of dark and serious. There's not a whole lot of darkness in Ant-Man, which is kind of refreshing. So because Ant-Man doesn't have a whole lot of mass appeal to the general public, Marvel knew that they had to take a less serious tone. Like, there's not a lot of ways you could take Ant-Man seriously without them being lighthearted and a little tongue-in-cheek with it. And that comes through, and I appreciated it, and I actually felt kind of connected to the character. It didn't seem really ridiculous, like I thought the first time when they said, oh, we're making an Ant-Man movie. While this movie is billed as an action movie and a sci-fi movie, I think it's really more of a comedy and a heist film. My problems with this film stem almost exclusively from its pacing, or lack thereof. Some parts of the movie go by really quickly, and some parts just really drag. Like, the movie's not all that long, but it feels really disjointed and slow-moving at the beginning, and then it just kind of rushes to the end, and I'm not sure if that's actually what it's doing, but that's what it feels like it's doing, and it's very strange and distracting. Secondly, there's the editing itself, which contributes to the pacing problem and is actually very, very distracting. I don't know if the average person is going to notice this so much when they watch the film, but I found it very noticeable, and a lot of my friends who also do some editing on the side found it very noticeable and distracting, but especially in the conversation scenes, they cut back and forth a lot. Normally when you have a conversation scene, there's what's called the wide shot, which is the two people talking to each other. Then they'll cut in, that is, change the angle of the shot so that it's just one person. When that person is finished with their line of dialogue, or very nearly finished with their line of dialogue, then they'll cut to the second person, and then we'll see what they have to say or how they're reacting to the news that the first person said. Then it will cut back to the first person if they have more to say, or it'll stay on the second person so that they can finish their thoughts or reply to the first person. Ant-Man, however, will cut back and forth regardless of who's talking. There are shots in these conversation sequences that last for a second, maybe 3 seconds on the long side, and that's really quick for a conversation, especially when that's supposed to be a heart-to-heart between two characters who are trying to get to know each other and bond emotionally and talk about how they feel and the trauma of their past and what it means for their future. These things should take time and develop slowly and naturally, instead of being cut really quickly. The last thing I want to talk about, which is still related to the pacing problem, is going to become a larger problem for these Marvel movies in general, and that is how they connect to one another. Because this movie is Ant-Man's introduction to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they have to spend a lot of time setting up his character, but they also have to spend a lot of time connecting his character to the other characters in the franchise. There's a lot of different characters and references and storylines that the bigwigs over at Marvel seem to think that every movie requires. Cramming all this stuff in really gums up the works and makes everything really complicated. This then throws off the pacing of the movie because you have to spend a lot of time with these other characters who aren't actually involved in the main plot, and it makes the movie just feel overburdened because there's so much stuff crammed into it. Since there's only so much time available in the movie, it means that you have to spend your time talking about these other things instead of talking about the characters and the plot points that actually matter to the story. Because there's all this other stuff going on, they actually underdevelop the villain, and that's kind of a shame because there seems like there's some cool character development he could have, but instead he just kind of gets boiled down to this crazy mad scientist type person who happens to be really fit but is also evil. Not only is that a problem for Ant-Man, but I think it's going to be a problem for all the other Marvel Cinematic Universe movies going forward for the foreseeable future anyway. It's also probably going to be a problem for other franchises as well. Batman! So, in summary, I'm going to have to give Ant-Man a 3.5 stars out of 5. If you've liked the other Marvel movies, you're definitely going to get a kick out of this one, especially if you like comedy, because this movie is very funny. The movie does have pacing problems, however, and that extends to the editing, as well as the over-connected, jam-packed nature of the storytelling inherent to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Okay, I think that's going to be it for today's video. Let me know what you thought of Ant-Man down below in the comments. And please don't forget to like, favorite, share, subscribe, follow me on Facebook and Twitter. I will see you guys next time. Bye!